What is happening, everybody? I hope you're all having a wonderful day, and welcome back to Dragon Age 2. So, as always, this is not a main episode of the Let's Play. This is a Codex lore reading episode. If that's not something you're interested, then click away now. Otherwise, let's lock in and learn about some of the things we've been seeing along this journey. So, first up, we have the Profane. We who are forgotten, remember. We who clawed at rock until our fingers bled. We cried out for justice, but were unheard. Our children wept in hunger, and so we feasted upon the gods. Here we wait in aeons of silence. We few, we profane. Found scrolled on a wall in the lost Primeval Thaig by explorer Faruma Helme, 510 Exalted, unknown author. And the profane would be those demons that we found inside the Primeval Thaig. You remember the ones with the flaming lyrium in their chest? The hunger demon was leading them. So I would imagine what that is either fallen explorers or dead dwarves who've become spirits that then got sucked into the lyrium stone. And then obviously they were all being led by the rock wraith hunger demon. Speaking of, we have rock wraiths. 20 years ago in the Legion of the Dead. Oh, sorry. 20 years in the Legion of the Dead. I've seen spiders larger than a Bronto. Brood mothers lounging in putrescence, surrounded by their corrupted children and unnamed things, with flesh turned against itself. But worse, by far, was in an old mineshaft down the Hadrian Thaig. We chased an emissary down there to a tunnel dead-ended in rubble. It was a vicious fight. He picked my men off until only 4 of us were left. When it seemed like we'd finally fulfill our oaths, our fight woke something long dormant. What I thought was rubble gathered beneath my feet, taking a terrible form. A beast of stone surrounding the shattered skeleton of a man. A rock wraith. The spirit of a dwarf so foul the stone itself rejected him. One swing of its boulder hand crushed the emissary, and then it turned its eyeless skull towards us. We fled back up the tunnel, its heavy footsteps thundering at our backs. When we reached the Thaig, we finally turned, knowing that out in the open we had no cover and couldn't hope to outrun the wraith. But when it came to the exit, it struck the trusses holding up the ceiling of the shaft, closing itself in forever. Perhaps, in the end, it felt remorse. Perhaps it was one lost soul recognizing another. From the Journals of Amrun, Legion of the Dead. That confirms my theory about all that being dwarven spirits. That is exactly what they are. So, they are... Where did it say? A beast of stone surrounding the shattered skeleton of a man, a rock wraith, the spirit of a dwarf so foul the stone itself rejected him. So that is tortured dwarven spirits are the rock wraiths. So that's what we will find down there in the Primeval Thaig. And given the lyrium idol and what it did to Varric, I imagine the reason why the spirit was so foul was because of the red lyrium down there. This is the big old thing we fought at Sundermount the other episode, so Varterral. In the days before Arlathan, there was a city in the mountains beloved by Dirthaman, keeper of secrets. Its people were wise beyond measure, thanks to his counsel, and the city flourished. Then, a high dragon settled in the mountains, and her hunger threatened the city. The elders cried out to Dirthaman for protection, as the dragon's rampages struck ever closer, and for 3 days and nights, the people shut themselves in their homes and watched the skies in dread. On the 4th day, Dirthaman heard them. He whispered into the mountains, and the fallen trees of the forest gathered, shaping an immense and agile spider-like beast. It was the Varterral. With lightning speed, vicious strikes, and venomous spit, it drove back the serpent. From then on, it was the guardian of the city and its people. Many years passed. The gods were trapped by Merril, and the people left together in Arlathan. But the Varterral kept its everlasting vigil, guarding Dirthaman's city as it eventually crumbled to dust. To this day it stands there, watching over the rubble. Any travelers foolish enough to wander there find themselves face to face with wrath incarnate. From the tale of the Varterral, as told by Gisharel, keeper of the Relafarian clan of Dalish elves. And actually, given what we know thanks to Dragon Age Veilguard about what the elven gods really are, I suspect what really happened here is Gillenane likely is responsible for Varterral's existence, right? She's the one that manipulates flesh and creates creatures from ash and bone, basically, twisting their nature. And it sounds like the fallen trees shaping into an immense agile like spider beast. It sounds like Gillenane likely put a bunch of things together here with her blood magic to create a vigil guardian for Alathan. That seems like it's Gillenane's doing, not Dirthaman. Or perhaps Dirthaman could mess around with things too. I mean, he is the keeper of secrets. But that just screams Gillenane to me, knowing what we know about her now. So, we do own this, so it'd be nice to learn about it. So here we have the Bone Pit. Sire, I interviewed the surviving slave this morning. She was horror-struck, but managed to tell me her chilling story. The overseer lined 17 slaves up, one behind the other, at the lip of the quarry. The second slave in line was ordered to push the man in front over the edge. The third slave pushed the second, the fourth the third, and on it went. Workers in the quarry heard the screams, the crack of bone against rock, and then the survivors' anguished cries as the overseer's dragonlings feasted on the 16 helpless bodies splayed upon the quarry's basin. The woman who told me this story was the 17th in line, spared only because no one stood behind her. Sire, I recommend we stop this ugly practice. Effective as it may be in motivating workers, it's also bringing our mind notoriety as a death trap. Stories of the Bone Pit swirl throughout Kirkwall. The veil is thin enough here, and above that pit it is practically ready to sunder. We risk more than simple rebellion should the Overseer be allowed to continue. A letter from Prefix Centarius, 35 Ancient. Prefix Centarius. The output of the Maharian quarry is up almost a third this season, and the Overseer has received a commendation from the Archon himself. You will speak of your findings to no one. A response from Magister Quillen, 35 Ancient. And there you have it. Like I always say about Tevinter, they treat humans as double D batteries to be used and discarded. And here, it's not even for double D batteries as blood magic. They just simply don't care. They're just chucking them over the edge to feed dragons, and because it was effective in bolstering the workforce, they don't care about the veil, they don't care about the loss of life, the deaths, the notoriety. All they care is that the quarry is producing more stone, so fuck them, right? This is the reason why I despise the Tevinter Imperium, and why Tevinters will never get any mercy or sympathy from me. Nevarra. The fourth time I attempted to cross the border into Nevarra from Orlais and was turned back by Chevaliers, I decided to take the more roundabout path, a ship back to Ferelden, and then another to Nevarra. The outcome was more than worth the trouble. The whole country is filled with artistry, from the statues of heroes that litter the streets in even their meanest villages, to the glittering golden college of Magi in Cumberland. Perhaps nowhere is more astonishing than the vast necropolis outside Nevarra city. Unlike most of the followers of Andraste, the Nevarrans do not burn their dead. Instead, they carefully preserve the bodies and seal them in elaborate tombs. Some of the wealthiest Nevarrans begin construction of their own tombs while quite young, and these become incredible palaces, complete with gardens, bathhouses, and ballrooms, utterly silent, kept only for the dead. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genetivi. And of course, the reason they do this in Nevarra, thanks to Vaelgard again, we got to see a lot of the necropolis, is the spirits actually regularly get risen, and they're walking around. They continue to live after death, essentially, every now and then. There's rituals and host events that they do. So they want all this, obviously, to still live lavish in the afterlife, basically, whenever they come back. And now we have the Primeval Thaig. Your Majesty. It's difficult getting a straight answer out of the scavenger. These sods get themselves so blighted they can't think straight, much less keep spit in their mouths. Says, however, that he's gone down into parts of the deep roads that are so old that our people forgot them long before the blight even happened. He spoke of great statues and temples. He spoke of things that could have only been made of magic and of impossible ruins untouched by the Darkspawn. He described creatures the likes of which we've never seen. None of it's possible, of course. I've conferred with the Shaper, and he says the memories date back to the founding of the first Thaig. What could have come before that? Yes, we're unable to explore these depths the Scavenger spoke of because of the Darkspawn, but surely the memories would speak of such places if they existed. Yet in the Scavenger's belongings, amidst all the filth, there was a single idol. It was clearly of dwarven make, but not resembling any paragon on record. The idol was dressed in a manner I've never seen. The Shaper of Memories also could not identify it or the substance from which it was made. The thought that the memories might be wrong is unsettling. Excerpt from a report sealed in the Orzammar Royal Archives by order of King Analar Geldenblade in 848 Blessed. So he ordered this sealed and never talked about again. I wonder if this idol was also red lyrium and it had a similar effect on the king. This doesn't really tell us enough to determine that, but I do wonder if this is also one of those cursed idols or not. That would be very interesting if it was, and also very dangerous if it found itself in the ownership of a king of Orzammar. Sundermount. Kirkwall is guarded by mountains to its north, the tallest of which is Sundermount. The mountain has a fearsome reputation. Legend says it was the site of the final battle between the Tevinter Imperium of old and the ancient empire of elves that perished with Arlathan. Both sides unleashed horrors into the waking world, and feyed creatures prowl the heights to this very day, unaware that the war for which they were summoned is long since over. There is a tale in the Free Marchers that blessed Andraste, upon reaching Kirkwall with her armies, sojourned up the slopes of Sundermount alone. She stayed there 3 days. When she returned, she wept as if her heart were broken. I stayed 2 months in Kirkwall, and despite my best efforts, I never found a guide willing to take me up the mountain. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Genetive. I'm surprised Brother Genetive didn't just go ask the Dalish, actually, but no surprises there that he couldn't find a guide that was willing to take him up there. That would not have ended well, given what we faced on Sundermount. The Wounded Coast. One of the few roads leading into Kirkwall passes through a dangerous area known as the Wounded Coast. The road winds close to a cliff edge that looms over waters with many a precipitous drop to the churning waves below. There's many local legend involving travelers falling, or jumping, or having been flung from those heights. From the cliffs, the road leads through jagged hills that line the pass like sharp teeth. Bandits use these hills as cover from which to ambush caravans. There's more to fear here than bandits, of course. Once one leaves the hills, you come upon a maze of sharp canyons, the hunting grounds for many fierce creatures. It is a place of secrets dating back to the golden age of the Tevinter Imperium, where ancient relics and statues crumble in time with the rocks. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Genetive. The Qunari, Saarebas. The Qun teaches that all living things have a place and a purpose, and only when they are in the correct place and in control of their own self may a being attain balance. When balance is lost, suffering follows. Mastery of the self is, therefore, the first and greatest duty. Those born with magic are at a terrible disadvantage, for demons can always rob them of their self. Because of this, the Qunari name them Saarebas, meaning dangerous thing, and treat them with the utmost caution. Saarebas must be carefully controlled by someone else, an Avarad, one who holds back evil, because they cannot truly control themselves. The evil is not the mage, but the loss of the mage's self, and the suffering that inevitably follows. The Qunari pity and honor the Saarebas, for striving while under constant threat from within is truly selfless, which is the highest virtue of the Qun. From the writings of the Seer of Kontar, 841 Blessed. The Vael Family. Before the Vaels came to power, Starkhaven was ruled in quick succession by a number of petty warlords. Some were genuine Banorn, but others were little more than bandits. Tired of the constant petty raiding and warfare between Starkhaven and neighboring cities, the original Lord Vael organized a peaceful protest against King Ironfist, the lowborn self-declared king of Starkhaven. Hundreds of Starkhaven's most prominent citizens fasted for 10 days and nights on the steps of the Chantry, their numbers increasing every day. When his soldiers began deserting in droves at this example of piety, Iron Fist surrendered his sword to the Templars and left Starkhaven forever. In gratitude, the people of Starkhaven demanded that Lord Vael be king. He refused, however, saying he had no right to the title. He was instead proclaimed Prince of Starkhaven, and his family has ruled there ever since. They remain devout, dedicating at least one son or daughter per generation to become a cleric in the chantry. And of course, this generation's son would be Sebastian, which is the only reason he's still alive, because the rest of his generation was wiped out by the Harrimans, of all people. Templars. Often portrayed as stoic and grim, the Order of Templars was created as the martial arm of the chantry, armed with the ability to dispel and resist magic, in addition to their formidable combat talents. The Templars are unquietly qualified to act as both a foil for apostates, mages who refuse to submit to the authority of the Circle, and as a first line of defense against the dark powers of blood mages and abominations. While mages often resent the Templars as symbol of the Chantry's control over mages, the people of Thedas see them as saviors and holy warriors, champions of all that is good, armed with piety enough to protect the world from the ravages of foul magic. In reality, the Chantry's militant arm looks first for skilled warriors with unshakable faith in the Maker, with a flawless moral center as a secondary concern. Templars must carry out their duty with an emotional distance, and the Order of Templars prefers soldiers with religious fervor and absolute loyalty over paragons of virtue who might question orders when it comes time to make difficult choices. The Templars' power derives from the substance lyrium, a mineral believed to be the raw element of creation. While mages use lyrium in their arcane spells and rituals, Templars ingest the primordial mineral to enhance their abilities to resist and dispel magic. Lyrium use is regulated by the Chantry, but some Templars suffer from lyrium addiction, the effects of which include paranoia, obsession, and dementia. Templars knowingly submit themselves to this treatment in the service of the Order and the Maker. So lyrium being so directly intertwined with dwarves, like, isn't lyrium the lifeblood of titans, and dwarves are the descendants of titans? But it makes sense that when you ingest lyrium, you would get some of the dwarven resistance to magic. That does make a lot of sense, logically. Although, having people who suffer from paranoia, obsession, and dementia being the safeguard of mages, well, thank God it doesn't affect all of the Templars, right? You would just have to hope that the ones you have in charge in higher positions aren't the ones that end up suffering from that. It is this sense of ruthless piety that most frightens mages when they draw the Templars' attention. When the Templars are sent to eliminate a possible blood mage, there is no reasoning with them, and if the Templars are prepared, the mage's magic is all but useless. Driven by their faith, the Templars are one of the most feared and respected forces in Thedas. From Patterns Within Form by Holden, first enchanter of Starkhaven, 880 blessed. And now we're going to start getting into some juicy things very specific to Dragon Age 2. So, the Mage Underground. To Knight Commander Meredith, regarding the so-called Mage Underground. Every circle in Thedas suffers from individual mages who rebel and attempt to flee. These apostates are usually found and returned to the circle or mercifully killed if they have fallen to demonic temptation. Until now, I have never served anywhere that the populace does not fully cooperate in hunting these rebels. Here in Kirkwall, citizens actually help rebel mages escape. Escaped apostates have survived their freedom long enough to form the Mage Underground, a network that feeds and shelters escapees, and even transports apostates into remote areas of the Free Marches and beyond our easy reach. As of late, the movement has grown bolder, sending raiding parties into the gallows in an attempt to break out mages who lack the skills or willpower to escape on their own. This is a grave concern. My recommendation is to fight back, both physically and in turning the minds and hearts of their supporters against them. Knight Captain Cullen. So Cullen is actually the one that is reporting on the Mage Underground there, which is quite interesting. It's also interesting that here in Kirkwall specifically, the people aren't as against or suspicious of mages as they are in other parts of Thedas. Which is especially surprising considering what goes on there. I mean, just a few episodes ago we had the mage serial killer, and how many times have we seen demons and blood mages and slavers going on here? I mean, Kirkwall is literally an old blood mage slave nation capital city, so you would think the population here would be a little more fatigued about mages. It's surprising that this is kind of like the bastion for free mages. And it makes you wonder. So Anders, after the Deep Roads. In the past 3 years, Anders has become more reclusive, verging on paranoid. When not with the champion, he spends his time among the Ferelden refugees in Darktown, healing their ills and counting on their loyalty to protect him from curious Templars. After his friend Carl was made tranquil, then killed, Anders was convinced the Chantry's entire structure must be overturned to free mages completely from their control. He has joined a group of like-minded apostates who are slowly wearing away Kirkwall's circle by helping other mages escape. The spirit of vengeance inside him has manifested more strongly, making it nearly impossible for him to control himself when fighting Templars. Aveline, after the Deep Roads. Since the adventure in the Deep Roads, Aveline has settled into life as the captain of the guard. She has removed the stain of Captain Jevon's corruption and turned the guardsmen into an effective enforcers of law and order. Becoming captain of the guard title should have brought Aveline stability, but she has instead found herself taxed by having so many people under her care. She is very protective of the people she commands, to the point of training each guardsman herself, and personally reinforcing otherwise simple patrols. Injury rates are lower than ever before, but the guards are beginning to feel smothered. Aveline is utterly dedicated to her job, leaving no time for anything beyond the occasional sidetrack with apparition. Even that is an excuse to watch over people she cares about. She is a guardian in every waking moment, and she doesn't seem to know how to put down the weight that she carries. Bethany, after the Deep Roads. Bethany communicates often with her family since entering the circle, and she is adjusting to her new life with ease. For the first time, she can study magic without watching over her shoulder. After passing her much-delayed harrowing, she took a senior position within the circle, teaching and mentoring the newest apprentices. Bethany is surprised at how many Templars are honest Andrastians who believe they serve the Maker and the people by keeping mages from using blood magic. However, this up-close look at the Templars has also shown her the abuses that inevitably occur when one group of people is given life and death power over another. Bethany supports the circle as it is, but this grows harder as Knight Commander Meredith clamps down more tightly. It's important to point out just how much she's been communicating with us since going to the circle, since Anders likes to paint the picture that they're not allowed to speak to anybody and that people are murdered just for asking about their relatives in the circle. Clearly that's not the case, right? That's clearly not happening. This codex explicitly states that, so. Divine Justinia V. Formerly the revered mother Dorothea of Orlais, Divine Justinia V rose to power after the death of Divine Beatrix III in the year 934 of the Dragon Age. Little is known of Dorothea's background before she joined the Chantry as an initiate. Within the Grand Cathedral, rivals suggest that her reticence in discussing her past means she's hiding something. Few of her flock, however, can imagine her as anyone other than a gentle mother of obvious faith. When Beatrix III was felled by a massive stroke, she survived just long enough to put forth Dorothea's name as a candidate for her replacement. Grand Clerics from throughout Thedas flocked to Orlais for the Grand Consensus, a private meeting between the heads of all chantries to select the next divine. That kind of works like the Vatican and Rome and the Pope. Though ritual demanded the decision be unanimous, servants attending the consensus whispered of heated debate over Dorothea's suitability. Her worldly background and demonstrated forgiveness for sinners were held against her. Ultimately, however, the will of Beatrix III prevailed, and Dorothea began her reign as Justinia V. Grand Cleric Elthina. We will never have peace unless we try to understand one another. Revered Mother Elthina assumed the mantle of Grand Cleric almost 20 years ago. She is responsible for the spiritual well-being of the Southern Free Marchers, everything south of Starkhaven and the Minanta River. She has long been a calming presence in the city, renowned for her kindness and generosity. People frequently turn to her to mediate disputes, particularly those involving the powerful Templar Order, over whom she holds authority as the Chantry's ranking representative. Some claim that Elthina's advanced age has rendered her ineffective, and that she allows Knight Commander Meredith more leeway with each passing year. Some are calling on the new divine, Justinia V, to appoint a replacement, but they do so quietly, for Elthina is by far the most beloved priest the city has ever known. I have my own issues with Elthina. I think she's sidelining herself way too much, and I mean, last time we talked to her about, the Sister Patrice stealing her seal and using it to authorize the murder of Qunari to try and pop those tensions off. She just said that she'll step in when it's time, and that children can't learn unless they're allowed to make mistakes. But she's playing with a lot of lives there. She's using that as a chessboard. It's not like you're letting somebody, fall and scrape their knee and then you tell them not to jump. This is like thousands of lives in the city we're talking about that she's playing this little game with. I am not much of a fan of Elthina. It seems to me that she should be able to step in way before where we're even at now. Like, she should have been stepping into this stuff. I'm not sure why she hasn't. Fenris, after the Deep Roads. Since the adventure into the Deep Roads, Fenris has remained in Kirkwall, maintaining a residence in Daenerys' abandoned mansion. That it doesn't truly belong to him has aroused the interest of curious neighbours, and thus the city guard. Aveline has so far deflected their inquiries on Fenris' behalf. However, she's told him in no uncertain terms that the situation will not remain that way forever. Though seemingly unconcerned about the house, Fenris has become increasingly nervous over the last year. He doesn't know if he's actually free from pursuit, or if his former master is planning something even worse. He tries not to think about it, taking pleasure in having a home for the first time in his life. Even though his contact with anyone outside of the jobs he takes as a mercenary is very limited. Isabela, after the Deep Roads. Isabela spent the past several years trying to track down the relic that she lost in the shipwreck. She believes that it's still in Kirkwall, though why she thinks so is a mystery. Despite her insistence that she's keeping a low profile to avoid her old employer, Castillon, Isabela seems to go out of her way to cause trouble. Recently, one of her duels evolved into a bar brawl that's then spilled out into Lowtown. Involving over 20 people, the fracas caused a great deal of damage to several merchant stalls. Isabela spent the next 2 weeks in the brig. Guard Captain Aveline allowed her release, but not before extracting a promise that Isabela would not duel on public property again. Whether Isabela actually keeps this promise remains to be seen. She spent 2 weeks locked up after we got out of the Deep Roads. And it's interesting how even now, after all we've been through, she's still being so secretive about this relic. She just refuses to talk about that at all with anybody, even Hawk. And my Hawk is in a relationship with her right now, and she's still refusing to be forthright about that. Merril, after the Deep Roads. It's a keeper's place to remember, even the dangerous things. Since her arrival in Kirkwall's elven alienage, Merril has had difficulty adjusting. Her neighbours ignore her existence, and even the most determined socialites in Lowtown cross the street to avoid her. She also gets lost frequently, a matter that doesn't seem to be solving itself through time or familiarity with the city. On separate occasions, she has accidentally found herself in the Viscount's bathing room, the Chantry airing cupboard, and in the middle of a dog racing track in Darktown. How she ended up in the Viscount's bathtub, essentially, is beyond. How do you just wander into the palace like that and just end up in his bathroom? I mean, I hope he wasn't in the bathtub, because he was in for quite a shock. Sebastian, after the Deep Roads. Sebastian has spent the past 3 years advancing his campaign to retake Starkhaven. He has been travelling extensively between Kirkwall and other Free Marches cities, attempting to recruit sufficient allies to rebuild an army. With Apparition securing the Hawk family, a place among Kirkwall's nobility, the two have crossed paths a few times, but an exiled prince like Sebastian has far better access than Apparition to the Viscount and other heads of state. So far, though, few families have agreed to support Sebastian with actual troops, leaving him in the difficult position of trying to retake his city with no army. Varric, after the Deep Roads. Bianca sends her regards. Bartrand vanished after the Deep Roads expedition, and Varric had to divert his attention from searching for his wayward brother to keeping the now abandoned family business from falling apart. Varric now occupies his brother's seat in the Dwarven Merchants Guild. Technically. He rarely attends guild meetings, and is hardly ever seen actually occupying the chair in their hall that belongs to House Tethras. He prefers to run the Tethras financial empire from his suite at the Hanged Man, and he never replies to his mail. That does not surprise me at all. Varric never was one for pomp and ceremony. He's always been the people person behind all that. And it looks like that is us all caught up, so that's going to be a perfect spot to wrap it. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and a comment, subscribe. If you want to support the cause and help improve the channel, please do check out my links in the description below. Otherwise, stay tuned and I'll see you soon with more Dragon Age 2. Take care everybody, have a great day. Peace.